We just want to hear a little bit about the project directors, Mr. Brian Starks. What was your role in the project, and what were your responsibilities?
Initially, we use like sports analogies. So Dr. Payne and Brittany Battle and I, we would consider Yasa as the head coach, and we would make an analogy based on football. And she and I served as assistant coaches. So our responsibility as far as being assistant coaches was to make sure that the team was on the ground performing the duties that we were initially organized to instruct. So during this month of 2-month intensive training, some of my responsibilities was to serve as a lecturer. My research interest as a criminologist to be is specifically in the courts and corrections, focuses on disproportionate minority representation in both of those venues. So one of my responsibilities was to teach the 15 members about the disproportionate minority representation in those courts, in those corrections, and how those decisions are made, and how we all play a part in how this mass incarceration represented by, in particular, blacks. Once February broke, my responsibility was to be in charge of data analysis. So once the 15-member PAR team created our survey design, we agreed on what type of questions were going to be asked in the East Side and South Bridge. Data was initially collected. I believe we did maybe a little over 40 interviews. Once that data was collected, we bring back that information, that data, and we send it out to what's called maybe a transcribing company, and they would actually type up the respondents' questions to our interview guide, and my team would actually review those transcriptions and make sure that they were exactly how the respondents wanted their voices represented. From those transcripts, we would do a method called coding, and we would look for central themes where all the respondents, we were able to pull out the theses on the response based on community structural violence.
One of the things, the other thing that you said that I'm not hearing from other people is that prisoners don't have to believe that they cannot continue education. Did I hear that correctly? Is there a way? Because to me, if you served your time, you should have served your time. I'm not hearing that. I'm hearing that you serve your time, but you now have to continue to serve time. Can you address that for me a little bit? I think, did you have one last question? But would you address that for me?
Ironically, I'm fortunate enough to happen to be in the trenches with this with the situation opportunity now. I'm a PhD student in criminology at University of Delaware, but I'm also an instructor at the University of Delaware teaching a non-traditional course at Baylor's Women Correctional Institution. And I take 15 University of Delaware students into Baylor's Women Correctional Institution and have a college class entitled Problems with the Criminal Judiciary. Now, we're able to allow those that are incarcerated to earn college credit. They earn college credit. They get a tuition reduction in continuing education, and they are provided scholarships. I have 6 scholarship recipients to show that, yes, even being incarcerated and an institution that has a racial history like University of Delaware, maybe not relationships with a lot of the communities that we're studying, that they provided an option for those to earn a college credit while incarcerated, with hopes that they would continue once they have.
So the door is not necessarily closed.
It's not.
And it may be one of the outcomes can stop this continuum of once you've been incarcerated, you have to stay in that situation, and that's very key, because what I'm hearing today, we've got to be able to give people hope that they can indeed go forward and have a life and stop this foolishness, because it makes me angry. Stop this foolishness about you can't go any further because you at this age of 18 or 19 did something that at once that others have done and not been incarcerated for in the first place. Well,
one more, just to piggyback.
Real quick.
Just real quick.
I'm getting all kinds of signals over here.
1980s, the war on drugs. Most of the people incarcerated, especially minorities, are nonviolent offenders. One of the issues with being able to obtain a college degree is that the government has set up a system where you can't receive financial aid if you have drug charges. Drug charges, only drug charges. So we're limiting the amount of the people that we know that have been targeted in the late 80s and 90s and 2000 with the war on drugs, and we know most of those people are black and brown people. So when they re-enter the community, their hands are tied with the scarlet letter of being a drug offender. So government assistance is pulled away from them. Government assistance, and not in the form of of just services, just educational opportunities. So it does limit that to take away that hope that I am stifled again. I want to jump in on action real quick to kind of like bring full circle in society and how action is going to work for us. That where, in a sense, action is already being working against us. You can look at, in the field of criminal justice, you take research and you take an easy statistic as arrest rates. You take arrest rates and you apply them in a certain community, and you send that out through media networks, and now you have an alarming issue of people of fear of crime, of violence, because crime is occurring here based on this research, which would be the statistical analysis of arrest rates. So folks in position of power, of authority, such as politicians or law enforcement, they can't have that public outcry deemed responsible in their field. So what do they do in response? So they create action to employ ideology of community policing. So they tell us through these media outlets and through legislation, through policy, through research, and through politicians that this is the bad neighborhood, this is the bad community. So we're going to respond to the research with action from this side, and we're going to put more police in these communities, knowing that these policemen, based on the action, is going to create more arrests. And more arrests in this community is going to remove more people. So now the media is going to say, hey, now those bad people in this community are being removed based on the action. We want to do it from the other side and respond to that action that is being done.
How do you think most research in the black community resists directly involving members of the actual community?
Great question. Anybody want to jump in? Why do we as the Academy resist involving folk from the community on our projects? I have a whole lot to say about that.
Well, I'll start off. One of the things that we are aware of is accountability and our responsibility and how we play a part in my entity of mass incarceration. So we take mass incarceration and we look at it from a numbers perspective, from an economic perspective, and we understand that each person that enters into the criminal justice system is really a number. And we can look at it and analyze this throughout history, that this has been a system of labor from a convict lease system, from debtors prison, to use those that are most denigrated against in communities such as this, to put them in positions where decisions have to be made, where legislation enacts laws to set up a system to be incarcerated, to be judged in a disproportionate way in the courtroom, to be sentenced in a disproportionate way in a courtroom, to contribute to the mass incarceration, to contribute to the prison industrial complex, which is approximately maybe 122 privatized small industries that actually profit from these folks. So what we're doing is we are taking this information and we're giving it to those folks so we can understand how we all play a part, not just in the community, but how the politicians, how legislation, how the academics, how teachers, how education, how violence, every entity, everyone is a part of this. Dr. King has always says that what does not affect you directly affects you indirectly. Well, we are directly affected from this. We're losing fathers, we're losing sons, we're losing mothers, we're losing daughters, aunts, and uncles. And it's very adamant for us to go back to empower our people with education, with information, so we can educationally make a change.
That's right.
That's why it's powerful for the research from academic perspectives not to be in the black community.